Welcome to the Thinking Abyss podcast, a philosophical journey through consciousness, reality, and the phenomena that challenge our understanding of existence. From ancient wisdom to cutting-edge theories, we explore where philosophy meets science and curiosity leads to the edge of the unknown.
I want to try something a little different to kick things off today. I want you to just pause for a second.
Okay.
Wherever you are, maybe you're on your commute, maybe you're at the gym, just for a moment, hit the mental pause button.
But please don't crash your car. Keep your eyes on the road if you're driving.
Right, yes. A very important caveat, keep driving.
Yeah.
But mentally, just take a snapshot. Look at the brightest thing in your field of vision right now. It could be anything. A red apple in a fruit bowl, the taillight of the car in front of you, maybe just the glare of the sun on your phone screen. Just, lock onto it.
Got it.
Now, shift your attention. What do you feel? Can you feel the fabric of your shirt on your shoulder? What do you hear? The hum of the fridge, the traffic outside?
Yeah, the air conditioner for me.
Right. And if you have a drink, take a sip. Feel that bitter coffee or sweet tea hit your tongue.
It all feels incredibly immediate.
Right.
There's no gap. It feels like there is absolutely zero distance between me and the world.
Exactly. It feels like you've just opened a window. Your eyes, and the universe is just flooding in, completely unfiltered. You assume that the red of that apple is just objectively there.
Yeah.
And your eyes are just passive cameras snapping a perfect picture of it.
And you assume the sound of our voices is just being recorded by your ear like a microphone. It feels like the truth, the absolute truth.
Yes. That feeling, that absolute certainty that you are perceiving objective reality. It turns out neuroscientists and philosophers actually have a name for that.
They do. They call it naive realism.
And I'm guessing the naive part is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that phrase.
It is. It really is. It's our intuitive default belief that we see the world exactly as it is. Sugar is sweet. My hand is my hand. The sky is blue.
It feels obviously true.
It feels undeniable. But, and this is really the starting point for our whole conversation today, that feeling is essentially a lie, a comprehensive, deeply embedded biological lie.
Wow, okay. That's a heavy way to open things. You're telling me my entire life is a lie.
Well, not your life. But I am saying that the source material we're analyzing today points to a really an unsettling truth. What you experience right now is profoundly different from what is actually out there.
So the camera's broken.
It's not even a camera. That's the key. We think of the brain as a passive receiver. Input comes in, we process it, output happens. But the research shows something completely different. The brain is an active constructor.
An active constructor.
It is building your reality millisecond by millisecond based on really incomplete information, your past expectations, and, its own biological wiring.
Okay, hold on. Let me get this right. You're saying the red apple I'm looking at?
Yeah.
My brain is building that image of a red apple. It's not just coming in through the lens of my eye.
That is precisely it. And really unpacking that difference, the difference between passive perception and active construction, that's our mission for this exploration.
Because it sounds like more than just a fun philosophical game.
Oh, it's so much more. This changes how we understand trust, how we think about our own senses, how we deal with disagreements, and really how we navigate the world at the most basic level.
All right, let's get into it. Because if I can't trust my own eyes, we have a lot to talk about. The sources refer to the brain as a prediction machine, which I have to say sounds like something out of science fiction.
It does, but it's a very accurate description.
So let's start with the hardware. Why can't we just trust the signal coming in? Why is the brain doing all this extra work?
The simple answer is it has to. It comes down to a fundamental biological bottleneck. If you look at the actual hardware, your eyes, your ears, your nose, they just can't capture everything. They are, to be blunt, pretty terrible cameras.
Yeah, I paid good money for LASIK. My eyes are great.
Even with perfect 20/20 vision, your eyes are only capturing a tiny, tiny fraction of the available information in the electromagnetic spectrum. We can't see infrared, we can't see ultraviolet.
Okay.
And your ears only pick up a specific sliver of sound frequencies. But even within the range we can perceive, the signal it's messy.
What do you mean by messy?
Well, for vision, the resolution is only sharp in the very, very center of your gaze, a tiny spot called the fovea. Everything else, your entire peripheral vision, is actually incredibly low resolution and blurry.
So we're getting the low-res video stream, like when your internet is slow and Netflix starts buffering and everything goes all blocky.
That's worse than low res. It's fragmented, it's noisy, it is full of holes. But you don't experience a fragmented, blocky, noisy world, do you?
No, I experience a high-definition, surround sound, seamless reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You experience this perfect 360-degree world. So the question is, where does all that extra data come from? If the camera isn't capturing it, who's filling in the missing pixels?
The brain makes it up.
Your brain makes it up, or rather, it predicts. And this brings us to the core theory from our research, a model championed by neuroscientists like Carl Friston. It's called predictive processing.
Predictive processing. Okay, break this down for me.
All right. The old model of the brain was very linear. Input leads to output. You see a baseball flying at your face.
Mm-hmm.
The image travels to your brain. Your brain processes the image, calculates the trajectory, and then sends a signal to your hand to catch it.
Seems logical enough.
It is, but it's far too slow. If your brain actually worked that way, the ball would hit you in the face long before you even realized it was there.
Why?
Neural transmission takes time, processing takes time. So the new model, the predictive processing model, suggests the brain doesn't wait for all the input to arrive. It's constantly, proactively guessing what's going to happen next.
So it's not reacting, it's anticipating.
Precisely. It generates a prediction. A ball will be at this spot in the next millisecond. And then it just uses that tiny bit of messy sensory data that's flowing in to check if the prediction was more or less correct.
So my brain is basically saying, I'm pretty sure there's a table over there.
Yeah.
And then it just glances at the data stream to confirm, yep, still looks like a table. And then it just moves on.
That is the perfect analogy. It's a radical efficiency mechanism. And there's a piece of data here that really drives this home. For me, it was the thing that made it all click.
Okay.
If you look at the visual cortex, the part of your brain that processes sight, you'd expect most of the connections to be coming from the eyes, right? From the optic nerve.
Of course. It's the vision center. It should be plugged directly into the cameras.
But it's not. The data shows that approximately 80% of the connections in the visual cortex come from other parts of the brain.
Whoa. Wait, say that again?
80%. Only a small minority, maybe 20% of the input is actually coming from the eyes.
Hold on. I need to push back on that for a second. That can't be right. You're saying that in the part of my brain responsible for seeing, 80% of the chatter is internal. The brain just talking to itself.
That's right. It's information coming from your memory, from your emotional centers, from your expectations about the world.
That seems incredibly dangerous. I mean, if I'm a caveman walking through the jungle, I want 100% of my data coming from the "is that a tiger in the bushes" department. I don't want my brain just riffing on what a tiger might look like based on a dream I had last night.
You'd think so, but think about the energy cost. Processing every single photon, every single pixel of visual data from scratch is incredibly energy intensive. And like we said, it's slow.
Right, the tiger would have already eaten me.
Exactly. By the time you got the full high-res download of the tiger, you'd be lunch.
Wow.
So the brain cheats
It predicts.
to save time and energy.
It says, okay, based on that rustle in the grass, that flash of orange, and the fact that I'm in a jungle known for tigers, there is a 99% chance that's a tiger. It builds the experience of the tiger before the light has even fully hit your retina.
It's a simulation engine, not a camera.
A perfect description. The brain is talking to itself far, far more than it's listening to the outside world. It's generating a model, a controlled hallucination, if you will, that is then just lightly constrained by sensory data. A controlled hallucination. That is slightly terrifying. It makes me feel like I'm trapped in a room just watching a TV screen, and I'm assuming the camera feed is live, but actually it's mostly pre-recorded footage with a few live updates.
That's not a bad way to think about it.
Surely we can prove this. I mean, it feels so real, so seamless. Is there a glitch in the matrix we can point to that exposes the system?
There are several. But the most famous one and the easiest one for anyone to demonstrate on themselves is the blind spot.
Oh, I've heard of this, but I always thought it was just, a figure of speech for something you don't notice.
No, it's a physical, anatomical reality of your eye. There is a specific point on your retina where the optic nerve, the big data cable, connects to send signals back to the brain.
Okay.
And because that cable has to plug in somewhere, there is no room at that exact spot for any light-sensitive cells. No rods, no cones, they simply can't exist there.
So logically, we should be walking around with two black holes in our vision at all times, like two dead pixels on a computer monitor.
Precisely. If your eyes were just cameras passively recording the world, you would see a black spot about the size of a lemon held at arm's length in each eye. But you don't.
I don't.
Why not?
Because the brain fixes it in post-production. It edits it out.
It does more than edit. Let's prove it. If you're not driving, you can try this right now. Hold your thumb up at arm's length.
Okay, my thumb is up.
Now close your left eye, and with your right eye, look directly at your thumb.
Yep, looking at my thumb.
Now keep looking straight ahead with your eye. Don't follow the thumb with your gaze, but very slowly move your thumb off to the right.
Okay, moving it to the right. It's still there.
Just let it drift into your peripheral vision. Keep going. It's about 15 degrees off center.
Moving. Whoa. It's gone. It just vanished.
It's gone. Now keep moving it to the right.
And now it's back. That is wildly unsettling. It just popped out of existence for a second.
That gap where it disappeared is your blind spot. That's where your optic nerve is. But here's the critical question. When your thumb disappeared, did you see a black hole? Did you see a void or a gap or nothingness?
No. I just saw the wall behind it. I saw my bookshelf. The pattern of the books just continued.
Exactly. Your brain saw the bookshelf to the left of the hole, and it saw the bookshelf to the right of the hole, and it basically said, the pattern probably continues. And it literally painted it in.
It just filled the gap.
It filled the gap with its best prediction. You were experiencing visual data in that spot, the image of a bookshelf that you were definitively not perceiving. There was no information coming from that spot. You were constructing it.
It's like the clone stamp tool in Photoshop. It just grabs the texture from the surrounding area and pastes it over the hole you want to remove.
That is the perfect analogy. And your brain does this constantly, 24/7, not just with the blind spot. It does it with motion, with color, with time. Which brings us to another great example. Change blindness.
Right. This is the one where a scene flickers back and forth, and huge things change without us noticing.
Yes. A classic experiment is to show someone a photograph of, say, a street scene. Then you flash a blank gray slide for just a split second, a tiny flicker, and then you show them the same scene again, but with a massive change.
Like what kind of change?
A huge one. Maybe a man's sheet changes from red to blue, or an entire building in the background disappears, or the two main actors swap places.
And people don't see it. It seems impossible to miss something that big.
They almost never see it. They can look at the two images flickering for a full minute and swear that nothing has changed.
Why? If a building vanishes, that should be the most obvious thing in the world.
It should be if you were passively receiving the image pixel by pixel, but you're not. Your brain has already built its model of the scene from the first image. Okay, guy in red shirt, check. Building over there, check. That little flicker, that gray slide, is crucial because it disrupts the motion signal that would normally draw our attention to a change. So when the second image appears, your brain relies on its existing prediction. It says, well, buildings don't usually just vanish instantly, so it's probably still there. And it actively overrides the new input, the missing building, with the old prediction, the building that should be there.
So we perceive a continuous reality, even though the input we're receiving is totally discontinuous.
You are perceiving what you predict you will see. And that leads us to the next, even deeper layer of this whole process, the incredible power of expectation.
So it's not just that our brains are filling in gaps in the data. It sounds like our expectations can actually go a step further and override the data that is there.
They absolutely can, and they do, all the time. Expectations don't just filter the information that gets through, they actively construct the experience itself.
The sources mentioned a few really common examples of this. The first one was spelling, which, as a writer, I have to admit, haunts me.
Right. It's a perfect example. If you're reading a sentence quickly and you expect a word to be spelled correctly, you will very often see it as correct, even if there's a typo.
I do this constantly. I'll reread an email I've written 3 times. I'll be sure it's perfect. And then the next day I'll look at it and see a glaring, obvious error. And I think, how on earth did I miss that?
You missed it because you didn't actually read it. Not really. Your brain saw the general shape of the word, it predicted what the word was supposed to be, and it served you that correct version in your conscious experience.
It's like my brain is auto-correcting reality before I even get a chance to see the raw file.
You literally hallucinated the correct spelling right on top of the typo. And it happens with much more complex things, too. It happens with faces.
How so?
There's research that shows if you expect a person to be happy, say someone told you, oh, you're going to love this person, they're so cheerful, you will perceive their neutral facial expression as being happier than it objectively is.
So your expectation paints a smile onto their face.
A subtle one, yes. And it works with sound, too. If you expect a sound to be loud, you will perceive it as being louder than an identical sound you weren't expecting. Your expectation amplifies the experience.
But the most mind-bending example of this, for me, has to be the McGurk effect. I watched a video of this once, and I genuinely thought it was a magic trick. It actually made me angry. I couldn't understand it.
It is a fantastic demonstration. It's probably the single best proof of how the brain fuses different senses together to create a new reality.
So for anyone who hasn't seen this, let's just describe the setup. You watch a video of a person's face. Visually, their lips are making the shape for the sound gak, as in gate. Their mouth is open, the tongue is in the back.
Correct. The visual input is clearly gat.
But the audio that's playing over the video have been dubbed. The sound you're actually hearing is a recording of someone saying bat, as in bat. A totally different mouth shape with the lips closed and then bursting open.
Right. Auditory input, bat. Visual input, gat.
So you've got this conflict. Gak in the eyes, bat in the ears. Logically, you'd think you would just hear bat because that's the sound that's actually hitting your eardrums. Or maybe you just realize the audio and video are out of sync. But that's not what happens.
Not at all. The brain absolutely hates that kind of conflict. It tries to find a single, unified explanation. It says, okay, the lips are saying ga, but the sound waves are saying ba. What is the most logical compromise that could explain both of these signals at once? And it synthesizes a completely new sound. It synthesizes da, which wasn't in the video and it wasn't in the audio. It's a total invention.
It's a total invention. The brain creates a unified, logical experience that best fits the messy data, even if it has to create something that doesn't actually exist in the source files.
And the craziest part is, even when you know how the trick works, you can't stop it. If you close your eyes, you hear ba perfectly clearly. But the second you open them again and look at the face, your brain flips and you hear da. You cannot consciously override the construction.
The construction is involuntary. It's happening at a level below your conscious awareness.
But think about what that means for something like an argument with your spouse or a witness on the stand in a courtroom.
Well, we just assume that hearing is a passive act. If you said the words, I heard the words. But this suggests that if I'm looking at your face, and I expect you to be sarcastic, or I'm interpreting your facial expression as angry.
Right.
My brain might literally rewrite the audio frequencies of your voice to sound more sarcastic or more aggressive to match the visual cues.
Oh, absolutely. That's a perfect real-world example of what we call top-down processing. Your high-level expectation of my anger can actually alter your low-level acoustic perception of my voice.
So I'm not hearing what you said, I'm hearing what I predicted you would say based on how you looked.
And this is why two people can walk away from the exact same conversation with completely different yet equally sincere memories of what was said and how it was said. They aren't lying, they genuinely constructed different auditory realities.
That is profound. It makes every he said, she said situation infinitely more complicated.
It does. And this whole idea extends beyond these simple moment-to-moment misunderstandings. It gets into the very nature of expertise. This is what the researchers call perceptual learning.
And this is the idea that experts don't just know more than novices. They actually literally see the world differently.
Yes, that's the crucial distinction. We tend to think that an expert like a radiologist or a professional chess master or a seasoned mechanic sees the same world we do, but just has a better library of facts to interpret it with.
They just think about it better.
But that's not what the research shows. Their brains have actually learned to construct patterns from the raw data that are literally invisible to a layperson.
Okay, give me the radiologist example. Because when I look at an X-ray or an MRI, it just looks like a gray, blurry smudge. I can't see anything.
Exactly. When you look at an X-ray, you see noise, gray, indistinct shapes. When a radiologist looks at that same image, they don't see noise. Their brain has spent years learning to predict the normal structure of a lung or a bone so perfectly that any tiny deviation from that prediction, a tumor, a microfracture, it just pops out. It's a prediction error and it grabs their attention instantly. They see the tumor the way you would see a bright red apple in a bowl of gray rocks.
So they aren't consciously squinting and searching and analyzing.
Yeah.
For them, it's just there. It appears to them.
The signal emerges from the noise. It's the same with chess masters. A beginner looks at a chessboard and sees 64 squares and a bunch of individual pieces. A rook here, a pawn there. It's a collection of parts.
Right.
A grandmaster looks at that same board and sees a landscape. They see lines of force. They see zones of control. They see strategic possibilities. They don't have to calculate, if I move here, then he moves there. They perceive the strategic situation holistically.
This completely redefines what it means to learn something. You're not just filing facts away in a mental library. You're fundamentally retraining your sensory processing. You're upgrading your brain's graphics card.
You are updating your priors. You're upgrading the predictive software that constructs your reality.
But even with the best software in the world, we can't process everything. There is just too much data flooding in at all times. And that brings us to the brain's selection mechanism, attention.
The spotlight of consciousness.
Right. And the sources bring up the most famous study in this field. If you've ever taken a Psych 101 class, you know this one, the invisible gorilla.
It never gets old. And the reason it never gets old is that people hear about it and they never, ever believe it would work on them.
Right. Everyone thinks, oh, come on. Well, I would definitely see the gorilla. So just to refresh, walk us through the setup of the experiment.
Okay. Researchers show people a short video of two teams of people passing basketballs. One team is wearing white shirts and the other team is wearing black shirts. And the participants are given a very specific task. Count the number of passes made by the team in white.
Okay, so it requires focus. You have to track the white players, track the ball, ignore the black team, and keep a running tally in your head. 1, 2, 3.
Exactly. And while you're busy doing that, right in the middle of the video, a person in a full-body gorilla suit walks into the center of the frame, faces the camera directly, pounds their chest, and then walks off.
It's not subtle.
It is not subtle at all. The gorilla is on screen for about 9 full seconds. It is right there, in plain sight.
And yet, when they asked the participants afterwards, did you notice anything unusual in the video? What happens?
About half of them say no.
Half. 50% of people are completely blind to a chest-pounding gorilla standing in the middle of the screen.
And they are absolutely flabbergasted when you show them the replay. They accuse you of switching the tapes. There's no way I missed that.
So let's unpack the why. What is actually happening here?
Here is the crucial part. The gorilla was invisible not because the photons from the gorilla didn't hit their retinas. They did. Eye-tracking studies show that people often looked directly at the gorilla.
So their eyes saw it.
Their eyes saw it, but their brain didn't. The gorilla was invisible because the brain didn't construct the experience of seeing it. The brain's attention system decided this is not relevant to the task of counting basketball passes. And it literally filtered it out of conscious awareness.
It's like the brain runs a spam filter, and sometimes it gets a little too aggressive. Gorilla! Doesn't look like a basketball. Sounds like spam. Delete.
That's a great way to put it, but we have to talk about the follow-up studies related to attention because there's a part that is, in my opinion, even weirder than the gorilla.
Weirder than an invisible gorilla.
Yes. It's about how attention can literally change the physics of the world you perceive.
Okay, you have my attention. This was the finding that the people who were focused on counting actually perceived the basketball court as being smaller.
Exactly. This is where we get into how your mental effort changes your perception of geometry. The participants who were expending high mental effort, the ones really, really focused on that ball, they actually perceived the distance between the players as being shorter. The court looked smaller to them.
That's wild. It implies that objective metrics, feet, inches, meters, are optional for the brain.
They are objective in the outside world, but your experience of them is completely subjective. We don't live in a world of rulers and tape measures. We live in what's called egocentric space.
Meaning?
Meaning we measure the world not in abstract units, but in units of effort. The world is scaled to our body and its capabilities.
Give me an example.
Okay. If you show a group of people a steep staircase and ask them to estimate its angle, an elderly person or someone who is physically tired will perceive the stairs as being visually steeper than a young, fit person will.
They aren't just saying it's steeper to complain. It literally looks steeper to them.
The visual perception of the slant is scaled to their body's ability to climb it. It's the same with distance. If you're wearing a heavy backpack, hills look higher and farther away.
And the sources mentioned this is true for our emotional state, too.
Yeah.
If you're depressed.
If you're depressed, the world literally looks farther away. Distances seem greater. On the other hand, if you're a skilled baseball player on a hitting streak, the ball literally looks bigger and closer to you.
So the physical world I inhabit is fundamentally different from the world of the marathon runner standing right next to me.
Precisely. And if we break this down sense by sense, we see this same construction principle happening everywhere. We could call it a sensory hierarchy, but really, every single one of our senses is just as guilty of making things up.
Okay, let's run through them. We've talked a lot about vision. That seems to be the most heavily constructed one. It's like a constant assembly line.
Right. Color, motion, edges, depth, They're all processed in different parts of the brain and then stitched back together into a coherent whole. It's a total mosaic.
But what about hearing? The sources mentioned that context is king here. We touched on the McGurk effect, but there was another huge viral example that drove this home.
Ah, yes. The great Yanny versus Laurel schism.
Oh, man, that tore families and offices apart for a week. I heard Laurel, by the way. Clear as a bell. People who heard Yanny were obviously objectively wrong.
And they would say the exact same thing about you. But the fascinating thing is what was actually happening in that audio file.
It was ambiguous, right?
It was a very low-quality, ambiguous recording. The sound frequencies were balanced in such a way that it could be interpreted as either Yanny, which is composed of higher frequencies, or Laurel, which is composed of lower frequencies.
And I didn't hear a mix of the two. I heard one or the other, clear as day. I heard Laurel.
Because your brain absolutely hates ambiguity. It made a choice. It inferred the most likely word based on which frequencies your own ears happen to prioritize, which can change with age, by the way, or what you had been primed by your environment to expect.
So once my brain locked on to Laurel,
It constructed Laurel. And it became very, very difficult for you to hear Yanny. It's the auditory version of the brain filling in the blind spot. It picked a pattern and stuck with it.
Okay, so vision and hearing are constructs. But what about taste and smell? Those feel so chemical, so direct. I put sugar on my tongue, receptors fire, I taste sweet. Surely that's objective reality.
You would think so. But the sources show that our experience of taste is heavily influenced by our emotions, our beliefs, and even our vision. The classic wine experiment is my favorite example of this.
Right. Walk us through it. You give a group of people the exact same wine. It's a cheap, ordinary table wine.
Identical wine poured from the same bottle, but you tell one group it's a $5 bottle of wine,
Yep.
and you tell the other group it's a rare $90 vintage.
And naturally, the people who think they're drinking the expensive wine report that it tastes much, much better. They start talking about the complex notes of oak and the velvety mouthfeel.
But here is the truly incredible part. They aren't just lying or posturing to look sophisticated. If you put them in an fMRI scanner while they're drinking it, the pleasure centers in their brains light up significantly more for the expensive wine.
Wait. Their brain is actually having a physically more pleasurable experience?
Yes, they are having a better gustatory experience. The brain constructs a premium taste based on the belief, based on the price tag. The label on the bottle is an active ingredient in the flavor.
That explains basically the entire marketing industry. We are literally tasting the brand.
We are, and this brings us to the final and maybe most critical sense, touch and pain. This is the one that really matters for our quality of life. We tend to think of pain as a direct, honest alarm system. You touch a hot stove, the nerves in your hand scream, you feel pain, end of story.
But it's not that simple, is it?
It's not that simple at all. Pain is a prediction. More specifically, pain is an opinion generated by the brain about the level of danger to your body's tissues.
An opinion.
An opinion. Look at phantom limb syndrome.
This is where people feel vivid sensations, often intense pain, in a limb that has been amputated.
Right. Imagine having a terrible, agonizing itch on a foot that isn't there, or a crushing pain in a hand that was removed years ago. There is no tissue in that hand to be damaged. There are no nerves sending pain signals from that hand because the hand is gone.
So where's the pain coming from?
It's coming from the brain. The brain's internal map of the body still has the hand. And if the brain predicts that the hand should be in pain, maybe because it was in a cramped position right before the amputation, it will construct the raw, vivid sensation of pain.
That sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
You can't treat the source of the pain because there is no source.
It's a terrifying condition, and it's definitive proof that pain is created in the brain, not in the body. And you see the reverse of this, too. Look at soldiers in the heat of combat.
Or professional athletes in a championship game.
Exactly. They can suffer horrific injuries, broken bones, deep cuts, torn ligaments, and feel absolutely nothing in that moment. No pain at all.
Because the brain decides it's not a good time to feel pain.
The brain predicts that survival, or winning the game, is a more important role right now than attending to that tissue damage. So it completely suppresses the construction of pain. It turns off the alarm because it doesn't fit the current priority. One researcher in the source material put it very bluntly, pain is an opinion, not a fact.
Pain is an opinion. I'm going to try to remember that the next time I stub my toe. Though I have a feeling my brain's opinion is usually going to be scream.
Usually, yes. But this all leads to a really difficult conceptual question. If color is processed over here, and motion is processed over there, and sound is being synthesized over here, and pain is just an opinion, Why doesn't my world feel like a disjointed, chaotic mess?
This is what the sources refer to as the binding problem.
Exactly. How does the brain take all these disparate neural systems, all processing different things at different speeds, and stitch them together into a single unified experience of a red moving ball? We see the object as a single coherent whole.
And the mystery is that we don't actually know how it does that, right?
We don't fully understand the neural mechanism. We have theories. It's likely related to the synchronous firing of neurons at a specific frequency. But the precise code for binding is still one of the great open questions in neuroscience.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. But we do know that a big part of creating that seamless unity involves a lot of clever editing, especially when it comes to time.
The time lag. This is the part of the research that makes me feel like I'm constantly living in the past.
Because you are. We all are. There is a measurable delay, on average, about 80 milliseconds, but it varies between an event happening in the world and your conscious awareness of it.
So the now that I'm experiencing.
It happened a fraction of a second ago. It takes time for the light to hit your retina, for the signal to travel down your optic nerve, for the brain to process it, and for it to be bound into your conscious experience.
So I'm always a little bit behind.
Always. But your brain works hard to hide that fact from you. Think about this. The nerve signal from your toe to your brain takes much longer to travel than the signal from your nose to your brain.
Just physics. It's a longer distance.
Right. So if an experiment is set up where you touch your nose and your toe at the exact same physical instant, you should feel the nose touch first. But you don't.
You feel them as simultaneous.
You feel them as perfectly simultaneous because your brain holds onto the nose signal, it buffers it, essentially, and waits for the slower toe signal to arrive. Then it syncs them up and presents them to your consciousness as a unified now.
I am living in a constructed present. My brain is basically a video editor, making sure the audio and video stay in sync.
You're watching the live stream on a slight delay to avoid buffering.
That is, I think I need a drink.
But wait, it gets even more complex.
Of course it does. Okay, so we've established that our internal biological machinery constructs our reality. But the sources we looked at are very clear that it's not just our biology. Our culture and our language play a huge role, too.
A massive role. This is a fascinating field. The idea that the very language you speak can change what you literally see and perceive in the world. The classic example of this comes from studies of the Himba people in Namibia.
Right. They have a different way of categorizing colors. They don't have separate words for what we call blue and green. Correct.
That's right. In their language, the color spectrum is just divided up differently. They have one word that covers most of what we would call blue and green. And when they're tested, they have a much, much harder time visually distinguishing between a blue square and a green square than an English speaker does.
But hold on. They can physically see the difference, can't they? Their eyes work the same way. They have the same cone cells in their retinas.
Their eyes work the same way, but their perception is different. Because their language and culture haven't marked that blue-green distinction as being important, their brains don't attend to it as strongly. It takes them significantly longer to spot the odd one out in a grid of colored squares.
Wow.
But on the flip side, their language has many more words for different shades of green than we do, and they can instantly spot subtle differences between two shades of green that look absolutely identical to me and you.
So it's like the language you learn lays down a grid over the spectrum of reality, and you become really good at seeing the lines of your own grid, but blind to the lines on other people's grids.
That is a perfect way to describe it. And look at something like gendered language. In Spanish, the word for table mesa is grammatically feminine. In German, the word for tabletisch is masculine.
What?
Research shows that when you ask native speakers to describe a table, Spanish speakers are more likely to use stereotypically feminine adjectives like elegant or slender. German speakers are more likely to use masculine ones like heavy or strong.
Just because of the grammatical gender of the noun? That's wild. It shapes the attributes they notice. It filters their perception of a table.
It primes their brain to construct the object in a certain way. So we have biological filters, we have embodied filters like how tired we are, and we have these deep cultural and linguistic filters. It makes you wonder, what happens if we take the world away entirely? What happens if we shut off the input?
We run the machine offline, and that's what we call hallucinations and dreams. The sources argue that hallucinations are actually one of the strongest proofs of this whole construction theory.
Think about it. If someone is having a powerful hallucination, hearing a voice, seeing a person who isn't there, that experience for them feels just as real as a genuine perception. It's not foggy or dreamlike. It's vivid and solid.
Which proves that the brain is fully capable of generating reality-grade experiences without any corresponding data from the outside world.
Precisely. The machinery that builds your waking reality, the predictive processing, the binding, the whole system, is fully capable of running on its own. It doesn't need the outside world to create an experience. It only uses the outside world to constrain that experience.
And we all do this every single night in our dreams.
REM sleep is the ultimate example. Your body is paralyzed, your eyes are closed, your ears are mostly offline, you have almost zero sensory input. And yet you experience entire worlds. You feel space, texture, powerful emotions, you follow complex plots, you fly, you feel terror.
And it feels completely real while you're in it. You never stop and say, wait a second, the physics here are all wrong.
It feels 100% real, and the implication of that is massive. It suggests that waking life is just the version of dreaming that is being constantly reined in and corrected by sensory input. We are always dreaming. It's just that when we are awake, our dream has to align with reality.
Waking life is just a dream constrained by sensory input. That is going to keep me up tonight.
Yeah.
But I have to ask the big question, the one I'm sure everyone listening is thinking right now. If it's all constructed, is any of it real? Is there an objective truth? Or are we all just floating in a personal void, making stuff up?
This is where we have to get really careful and talk about the nature of truth, because it's very easy to slide from this into a kind of lazy, everything is an illusion, man philosophy, like a college freshman in a dorm room at 3 a.m.
Right. I mean, clearly I can't just walk through this wall because I predict that it isn't there. Reality has a habit of punching back, hard.
Exactly. The construction is not arbitrary. The best way to think about it is as a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you have perceptions that are highly constrained by physical reality. Wavelength light, tissue damage, gravity.
Things you can't really argue with.
You cannot hallucinate your way out of gravity. If you step off a cliff, your predictive model of the world fails very, very quickly and catastrophically.
The ultimate reality check.
Correct. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have perceptions that are highly flexible. The meaning of a piece of abstract art, the trustworthiness of a stranger's face, the taste of that expensive wine, the tone of your spouse's voice during an argument.
So the direct stuff, like the red apple, involves some construction, but the more abstract social and emotional stuff involves mostly construction.
Yes. And the reason our constructions don't just fly off the rails is because evolution acts as the ultimate guardrail. Our predictive models have to match reality reasonably well, or we die.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you're an early human whose brain consistently constructs the image of a fluffy kitten when you see a tiger, you get eaten. You don't pass on your genes. So in a very real sense, we are all the descendants of the people whose hallucinations just happen to align very well with physics.
That's a strangely comforting thought. We are the successful hallucinations. But what about when our constructions disagree with each other?
Well, this model provides a powerful explanation for disagreement. Two people can witness the exact same event: a political protest, a foul in a sports game, a tense meeting at work, and genuinely, honestly see two completely different things.
They aren't lying.
They aren't lying. Their brains are constructing different realities based on their different pasts, their different values, their different expectations. Their predictive models are different.
So instead of getting angry and shouting, "Are you blind? How can you not see that?" We should probably realize, well, yes. In a way, they are blind to what I see, and I am blind to what they see.
It should ideally foster compassion. It forces us to ask the question, what priors is their brain using to construct this version of reality, rather than just assuming they're stupid or malicious?
And this brings us to the final frontier of all of this, consciousness itself. Because if the world I experience is a construction, then what is the me that is looking at it?
The storyteller.
If my entire experience of the world is a carefully constructed story, a controlled hallucination, what is consciousness? Is it just the screen where the movie plays?
The expert view emerging from the sources is that consciousness is not a window onto reality. Consciousness is the story that the brain tells itself about reality.
A story. So the feeling of being a self, a unified me sitting here talking to you, is just another character in the book my brain is constantly writing.
In a way, yes. But, and this is the most important part, just because it's a story, just because it is constructed doesn't mean it isn't real or valuable. That story is the life we actually live.
It's the only one we have.
It's the only one we have. And there is a profound evolutionary benefit to this whole setup. A constructed consciousness allows for incredible flexibility. If we only saw exactly what was there, a pure reflection of reality, we could never imagine the future. We could never plan. We could never look at a rock and see a potential tool.
The ability to construct allows us to simulate possible futures.
To simulate futures, to find meaning in patterns, to create art, to build societies, to adapt. The construction isn't a bug in the system. It is the defining feature of human intelligence.
This has been a lot. My brain feels like it's been rewired over the last hour. Let's try to summarize this entire journey before we wrap up.
Okay. We started with the simple red apple and the powerful illusion of direct perception. And we realized our senses are actually very low bandwidth, and our brains are high prediction machines.
We looked at the blind spot, the literal hole in our vision, and how the brain just wallpapers over it with its best guess. We look at the invisible gorilla and how our attention acts as a ruthless filter for what gets into our reality.
We saw how our expectations can magically turn the sound ba into da, and how our tired bodies and our native languages can literally reshape the geometry and color of the world we see.
And finally, we realized that dreams are just the reality construction machine running without the data feed from the outside world to keep it in check.
And the final verdict is clear. The balance is tipped heavily, overwhelmingly, toward construction.
So how do we live with this knowledge? If I know my world is a carefully tailored simulation running inside my skull, what do I do with that information tomorrow morning?
I think you use it to free yourself from the tyranny of naive realism. You stop assuming that your personal perspective is the default objective truth that everyone else should see.
Be more humble.
Be humble about your own perceptions. Be more curious about how others are seeing the world. And honestly, just take a moment to appreciate the staggering amount of work your brain is doing for you. It is stitching together a coherent, stable, beautiful universe for you in real time, every single millisecond. That is a kind of miracle.
It really is. So here's a final thought for all of you to carry into the rest of your day. The next time you are absolutely 100% certain that you see something clearly, whether it's a detail in a room or the motivations of a person you're arguing with, just remember that feeling of certainty is just another thing your brain constructed.
And maybe, just maybe, it's worth taking a second look.
Thanks for joining us for this exploration. We'll talk to you next time.